Maybe you feel a really deep and profound duty to care for your parents personally now they're getting older. Maybe you think, gosh, should they come and live with me? Could they come and live with me? Or maybe you're just not in a position to look after your parents, but terribly wish you could and feel deadly guilty about it. 0207 862 2222, that's the number. Do give us a ring on this one. I mean, you both really are in that position. If we start with your fear, you've got a lovely young daughter of 13.
Yep.
And also a mum who's got some quite sort of significant health issues, and it's really very difficult.
It is difficult. I mean, my mum has Parkinson's. She just turned 75 at the end of last year, and her needs are quite high needs. It's not something that I...
Oh, we're looking at a beautiful picture of you with your mum. Oh, look at that. You look so sweet.
So young.
Mum, you look just like your mum. Image. So she's really not too well, unfortunately.
No, she's watching, so hi,
Mum.
Mum.
We send her lots of love.
Absolutely.
Must be very, very proud of you. I always
bless
think that.
you. But this is the thing, is that her needs are so complex and so high. It's not something that I really could take care of, could do. And it makes me feel massively guilty, actually, that it's not something that I can do. It's not something I'm qualified to do. But also, I have a young daughter at home as well, who I need to look after. And it's terribly difficult to balance the visiting of the relatives with looking after the young one, with trying to assess the needs. And of course, when you have a parent who has quite high needs, it's everything that goes along with that. So figuring out what benefits they should get, if anything, getting the extra things that they need, you know, wheelchairs or walkers, or and when she's been ill, and she has been, you know, really ill with pneumonia, you know, you always think, gosh, you know, is this the time?
Is she geographically near you? Or is
No, well, she lives in Cardiff.
I thought so. I thought she wasn't too close to where you live, which makes it even more difficult.
Exactly. It's not like we can just pop down the road after school on a Thursday or something. And that can be problematic. And of course, you know, because she has Parkinson's, her speech isn't great, so it's not like we can have long conversations on the phone. But when I see her, it's so wonderful. We get to have our chats because we're in person, face to face, and it's so much better. But it's really difficult to do that juggle and to judge, to balance the judgment that you put on yourself and the guilt that you feel. It's a lot.
It's enormous. And of course, we are an ageing population. So this issue for so many of us is going to affect an increasingly huge number of people. And this is why I know, you know, that I set up this podcast recently with a friend of mine, Annabelle James, which is called Age and Stage, and is specifically about this. It's to help people like us that are trying to find the resources or the help out there, because there are so much to talk about. And my mum's in her mid-80s, and I know that she's watching. We were both in the green room earlier going,
she's very proud of you too. It's lovely to think that both your mums are watching. How nice, how excellent.
We were both saying hi, Mum. But my mum has chronic pain, which she's had for many years from multiple massive back operations she's had. So you know, she really struggles with mobility, and so therefore can't drive as well. And although she's much nearer me geographically, you know, it is very difficult. And so
And how old are your children?
They're 18 and 17.
OK, so they still need you very much indeed. There are exams going on. There's all sorts of stuff that you absolutely must be there for.
And we haven't talked about careers. You know, we're all at the age, and not only are we working, but we're going to be working later than ever before. We're going to be working into our 60s and 70s, which means that there's going to be a whole generation of people, even older, who are going to be, you know, looking around saying, where are your parents? Where are my kids to look after me? And the other thing, I'd be fascinated if our viewers want to talk about this. One of the things that Annabelle and I have really noticed a lot of friends and colleagues talking about is sibling problems when you're looking after your parents.
You're absolutely right. Do give us a ring on 0207 862 2222. Didn't think to ask you this, but Daisy's 100% right about this. Maybe it's a complete nightmare with your siblings. Maybe one of you's doing all the work and putting in all the care and all the time, and the others maybe geographically aren't around or just can't be bothered or whatever it is. And maybe some of you are more financially successful, and it's, I don't know what's going on, but maybe the whole thing is actually difficult with your kids, with your parents and with your siblings all at the same time.
Absolutely. There can be so much resentment between siblings, and you know, we're going to sound very sexist, but it does tend to be the female, the daughters, and also the daughter-in-law quite often. You know, they're like, this isn't even my mum or my dad, this is my partner's mum or dad, but it's falling on me to do it all. So there are so many issues. Anyway, this is why we set up the podcast, to talk about, you know, power of attorney, spotting signs of dementia, how to have that conversation with your parent about, I'm really sorry, Mum, but I don't think you should be driving anymore. Really difficult
These are very, very difficult. I mean, you're romping through these things, but just that conversation to a parent, I don't think you should be driving anymore.
It's huge.
You have your heart in your mouth.
Yeah.
Because what you're really saying is you're going to lose all your independence. You're also saying you could kill someone, God forbid. So you really can't do this anybody. It's incredibly hard to have that conversation, particularly as, of course, however old you are, you remain the child in your relationship with your parents. You're not their boss. You're the child. And it's very hard.
That can be really, really difficult. I mean, my mum was diagnosed with Parkinson's when she was still relatively young.
So you were young too.
Exactly. And she was, 50, if that, and was hugely active, had, an incredible job, was so well loved at what she'd done, brilliant at what she did. And then, again, she couldn't drive anymore, she couldn't work anymore, a job that she loved and was incredible at. And that was really, really difficult for her, and she's had the condition for quite a long time now. But I think it's also the conversations that you have with your children about, grandma doesn't keep well. When my daughter was born, my mum was still really quite well, so she was there
they are
when
together. Look at that. It's gorgeous.
She was there when I first had Naima, and lots of help at the beginning. She was amazing. But as Naima's got older, she's been able to do less. And Naima remembers grandma running after her when she was younger, and she can't do that now. And having to have those conversations with them is difficult.
Very difficult.
Right?
This really is a very difficult and very important subject. I'm glad you're doing a podcast on it. I'm joined by Nadia Taylor. So nice to see you. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. She's the chair of the Carers Network. So we're going to take more of your calls on caring for your parents, particularly if you're a part of that sandwich generation. You've got to take care of your kids at the same time. Don't forget, later on in the programme, though, as Prince Harry claims he's in the dark about his father's cancer battle because the King won't take his calls, we're asking, who do you think should make the first move when it comes to making up the royal rift? But this is what we're talking about. Is it your duty, do you feel, to care for your ageing parents? The number's 0207 862 2222. Do give us a ring. So you are not just doing it, you're also campaigning about it and helping people with it. But your own situation is very similar to Daisy's and Afua's, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes. I have been a carer full-time for many years now. My parents have been living with me for 25 years now. So you can imagine it is a life-changing decision. You really abandon career aspirations, dreams, plans that you may have had. But at the same time, I have to say personally, it's an incredibly rewarding thing to do. Whether it's a duty or not, I think as a decent human being, we all owe that to parents that have taken good care of us, or to children that we bring into the world, with disabilities. But at the same time, I think it's helpful to know that there is a mechanism of support there for when the hour of need comes.
So what is the mechanism of support?
Well, there are charities such as the one I lead, Carers Network. We provide carers assessments, which became a statutory requirement as part of the Carers Act.
So that means to establish, I am a carer, I will need
absolutely.
to get some kind of...
And what we do is we actually spend time to work out what the care needs are for the carer, not the cared for.
Right.
That's the very important distinction to make. And once we establish what that plan is, we obviously put in place all that the carer needs to support them, to support their health, their well-being. We provide information about and advocacy as well, of how to navigate a system that is very complex. So we would intervene with local authorities, we would help with any housing, debt, information. Because
some of these forms are dozens of pages long, and you really need your hand held to work it out. And there are some specialist solicitors, particularly for these types of things. But obviously, if you can get some free advice, and Age UK is a great one if you are talking about the elderly, which obviously you're talking about all carers,
That's
not
right.
specifically.
I mean, it can feel, I think, desperately lonely.
Oh,
because,
it is.
Especially when you think about the sandwich generation being pulled in so many directions at once and feeling woefully inadequate at all of them. Letting your children down, you're letting your parents down, you can't concentrate at work, and it can go on, as you quite rightly say, for years and years. It's not often a temporary thing. So the loneliness is an issue, and the isolation. And what would you advise in those circumstances?
Well, what we do is we actually coordinate support groups. We really, I feel, empower carers to be able to be there for one another as well, because the system is challenging, but we can also do an enormous amount to support one another. So we have coffee mornings.
Calls are just hurtling in. again, and I'm not at all surprised. Loads of people are calling. I'm so glad you've rung. We'll get to you as quickly as we can. Let's start, though, with Denise. Now, Denise gave up her career as an accountant 6 years ago to care for her mum, Maureen, and she joins us on Zoom. Hello there. How nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Hello.
So, was it for you a hard decision? Because after all, you didn't just have a job, you had a career. I mean, you were going great guns, Denise. Was it a big decision, or was it obvious to you that you were going to do this?
It was really, it had to happen. My mum, due to osteoporosis, suffered spinal fractures, which completely were life-changing for her. So there was really no time to think about anything else other than looking after her. And at the time I spent a lot of time working abroad. So there was really, it was a necessity.
Yes.
And I think looking back, I think I would have handled some things differently, but I wouldn't have not done it, because I couldn't just at that point. I wouldn't have been able to leave anyone, let alone my parents.
So if Denise, briefly, you take me briefly through a typical day for you, how kind of hands-on is your involvement with your mum? How much of your life is taken up with simply caring for her?
It's pretty much at various points throughout the whole day. The best thing you can do for somebody, although it's more time consuming and draining, is to actually not do everything for them, but help them do what they can do. So it's very much, I'm with her, helping her to get dressed, helping her to get ready in the morning, help her to make her
Just say
her
Nadia's
breakfast.
nodding, Daisy's nodding,
Yes.
Afia's,
You know,
everyone's nodding.
then,
The
yes,
helping
I
rather
will
than the doing.
Absolutely,
Yes.
you have
leave
to
her,
maintain a level of
you know,
independence for them.
Yeah. They're saying you have to maintain a level of independence. I think one of the impacts it's had on you, Denise, I've been told, is in terms of your dating life. It's really kind of put a break on that.
Oh, yes. I have a couple of points over the last 5 to 6 years have dipped my toe back into that, but it just, as much as people say, oh yes, I understand, you're upfront with them, you tell them, then perhaps you are going to be running late. You do have to perhaps have changed plans, and it just doesn't work with people. I'm fortunate that I've got a couple of very good long-stand friends who understand. They've also been in a caring situation, so they're very, very supportive. But I think if you haven't been in an established relationship at the point you become a carer, it's very, very hard
Denise,
to it.
thank you so much for
really
joining us.
I mean, yeah, if Mr. Right were to walk in the door tomorrow, I would not do it, but it's not something that I'd go. I just don't need to take on anyone else's emotional,
I get it.
stress.
I get it. There's no space,
complaints.
is there, for that? Denise, thank you so much. Love to Maureen. I mean, the idea that it puts a brake on your dating life, it makes a lot of sense, but must be very painful as well, mustn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, it is. You mentioned earlier, Vanessa, how lonely it is. It is, because you're isolated at home, and you know, you have all manner of struggles, emotional, but also financial. You know, what Denise said actually resonates hugely with my own situation, because I gave up a career in licensing law to take care of my parents, and you can imagine, not only do you lose your income overnight, but you are very conscious of how differently you're seen by society, and you struggle with that because, you know, you've taken time to build a career, and all of a sudden you're just looked at, you know, a family member who is there, and very often you're seen as a nuisance as well, and particularly I have to say by
sees you as a nuisance?
NHS staff,
Oh,
because
really?
you're not really viewed as the key worker that you actually are for the loved ones that you care
Tell me something.
for.
You've been doing this for your parents, both parents, for 25 years.
Yes,
You were
I
a
have.
high-flying lawyer. Have you ever, during that time, thought, look, you know, I've put in a decade, I've put in 15 years of the only life I'm ever going to have. I'm going to pay someone else to do it, or I'm going to see what other arrangements I can make. Have you thought of doing that?
No. I think it's, again, I mentioned earlier, perhaps it's a reflection of personal values, but I think, you know, my parents have been tremendous, and you feel that the time comes when you have to give back, you know, what you've enjoyed and taken from them. I wouldn't swap it. It's incredibly hard. You know, I haven't gone on holiday for 25 years. I haven't slept for 25 years.
Gosh.
But I wouldn't swap it for the world because I know they're in good hands. And I can tell you there have been issues with safeguarding and all manner of things like that where unless you really were there for them, they would have suffered.
Right, well, I mean, you're obviously the most amazing person. I'm sure they're incredibly proud of you. I keep saying that, but I really mean it. It's obvious, isn't it? Let's talk to Annie, who's on the line in Chichester. Hello, Annie. So you're talking about your late dad, but you did feel that you couldn't just leave him to be cared for by others. You were there with him every single day, I believe.
I was with him most days, yeah, because honestly, Vanessa, I mean, he's, you know, if we weren't around, I'm one of 4 siblings, and if they'd been nearer, they would have done exactly the same, you know, but I happened to live round the corner from him. So, yeah, I used to go in and see him most days. And, I mean, you know, we had carers coming in most days, and then it got to the point where with this particular disease, he had to go into a home. But they were very short-staffed there, so even there I would go in and play Scrabble with him or, you know, hold his hand while he was watching an opera. But the main point, my point is that, you know, when someone has that sort of disease, you know, they're lying there I mean, God knows what's going on in their heads, you know. The least you can do is turn up. I mean, I was very lucky, you know, I didn't have I wasn't working at the time, I was sort of semi-retired, so I was, you know, but I was in a position where I could do it, you know, but I didn't. Your point about this, I mean, yeah, it wasn't a sense. I didn't do it out of a sort of sense of duty, you know, at all. Nothing could be further from the truth.
You did it because you wanted to,
like that,
from love. Yes,
yeah,
Annie, lovely to hear from you. Thank you so much. Let's talk to Maggie in Suffolk. So, Maggie, tell me about looking after your mum.
Well, it was a few years ago. Mum's been dead now for 19 years. But she had vascular dementia, she had a recurrence of her breast cancer, and she had a series of falls and heart conditions. And I was a nurse, and I was 48, and I was working full time, and I just, you know, she was my mum, and I'm on my own. My sister's in New Zealand, and I just, you know, she was a wonderful mum, and we loved each other very, very much, and I wanted to help her, but it was utterly exhausting. I would do it all again tomorrow, but it was exhausting. It really was. And I had to take annual leave for hospital appointments. And I really do think the governments do need to assist carers better than they do.
About this, because this is really her life's work. Apart from looking after her parents, she's campaigning for this. Obviously, when Maggie says the government need to help out, she's a nurse working full-time, taking annual leave to take her mother to the hospital, everything else. I mean, it must have been shattering. What help is there? Is there any?
There isn't really. We do need a meaningful financial recognition. You need to preserve people's dignity. I mean, in my view, the only viable solution is to extend the minimum living wage. You have to give... you have to recognise the enormous sacrifice that unpaid carers do. I mean, let's just think of our economic contribution, £184 billion a year. Yeah. That's equivalent to the NHS budget, 4 times greater than the expenditure on adult social services. I mean, that's enormous. Imagine what would happen if actually unpaid carers stop doing what they do. It'll lead to a collapse of the healthcare system, of the social services system, and you just cannot dismiss the work that we do. We are a hidden workforce.
Absolutely. On the other hand, you can see the bond of love, and not really the bond of duty at all. The bond of love, the bond of affection, the bond of gratitude for what your parents have done for you is so huge that you can see it's not going to be abandoned, is it? Even if carers aren't paid. Let's go to Christopher, who's in Coventry. Hello, Christopher. What happened to you, sir?
Oh, it's something to think. Yeah. I've got many illnesses, and my kids, I've got 5 lovely children, let me stress that, and 5 beautiful grandchildren. But I find myself at 64 years old in a home with people that are ill than me, some not quite as ill, but there's a lot. But it's just, I'm disillusioned. Why am I here? My kids seem to have abandoned me. They don't speak to me.
Oh, no.
I haven't seen my grandchildren for 2 years.
Oh,
I'm just a bit lost, that's all. I'm sick of...
That's so hurtful,
for moaning.
Yeah.
I don't say, you know, I'm not, you know, I was never a perfect dad, but I never I was, you know, but I never hurt my children or anything like that. But it's just.
Have you? Do you ever send them a note or a card or anything like that?
Constantly trying to text them, phone them, get no replies.
Oh, well, that's very, very hard.
I've spent a bit of time in the hospital over the last couple of years. And I think they came to see me once. I don't know. It's just a bit. I mean, where I am is all right. Don't get me wrong. The home is fine.
Yeah.
If they can't do it logistically, I just wish they'd come and see me.
Well, obviously, I don't know the background story here, so I can't give a view of, I can't pitch into a family situation. But what I could say is, what I'm thinking genuinely is, what harm would it do if you just asked somebody to go and get you some really nice cards, Easter cards or something like that, and you just sent one to each one of your kids and each one of your grandchildren, just saying, thinking of you, missing you, would love it if you could pop round just for a short visit, and then at least you've tried. Christopher, best wishes to you. Let's go to John in Edinburgh. Hi, John.
Hello, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and I bet you're exhausted. Are you?
I am exhausted. I'm listening to your other guests on the show and people calling in, and my heart, goes out to them all because I'm in a very similar situation. During lockdown, everybody decided, I suppose, to reevaluate their life, and myself included. I was a very successful West End actor and singer. I did a lot of big shows. I lived in London for 30 years, and I thought, OK, I'm getting into my 50s. I'm going to relocate back to my beautiful hometown of Edinburgh, which I did. I could be mortgage-free. And then all of a sudden, I had not one, but two elderly relatives that were both diagnosed with Parkinson's. Now, one is my father and one was my uncle, his older brother, who sadly passed last year. But I was in that situation of then having to give up my whole complete life for my dad, which I do in a heartbeat like everybody else. Family comes first to me. However, it's had a knock-on effect. I've had to lose my agent. They can't find me work because I can't go on tour. I can't go back to the West End. So I'm limited in what I do. So I've now found myself, having to look after Dad. We have care that come in, but also it's really difficult because it's all fallen on my shoulders. I have a sister that lives 6 minutes away, and as your guest said, the women or the sister-in-laws or daughter-in-laws primarily don't do it. Some women don't. They are not interested in having a maternal bond with a family member. It's fallen on my shoulders. I have a brother in London who's very helpful, who comes up and speaks to my dad constantly. But the whole weight of the situation has fallen on my shoulders, and it's made me quite resentful because you think, well, hold on a minute. We all had the same upbringing. We all went to a nice school. We're all well educated. We all were given money to start our first flats, etc. Why then is it just one family member that the burden falls upon?
That's exactly
in my
what Daisy was saying.
Anyway.
It often works that way, right?
It does. It does. And of course, John's absolutely right. It's not always the woman, the daughter, that it falls on. And I'm sorry for John for what's happened. And there is advice on this issue. We did a podcast about this issue the other day. And one of the advice is, OK, if you've got a sibling who's not pulling their weight, and maybe they can't because they're in New Zealand, as we heard, we know one sibling, there are things that you can get them to do. Like, for instance, if there is a 36-page form, they can do that from New Zealand. They don't have to physically. They can actually do, if they're in London and Dad's in Edinburgh, they could do, a supermarket delivery online shop for them. There are things you can do to help and to show that you're there in spirit, if not in person. That can, and the person, the sole carer, needs to be able to think of some things to delegate because that resentment is so toxic and it's so hurtful.
I really feel for John.
Yeah, I do too.
Really do. But I feel for everyone. I mean, it's just so, especially when you feel as if you've had to give up everything that you liked about your own life.
Yeah, you feel abandoned.
And of course you love your parents, but my goodness me, this is really a big deal. So let's talk to Sarah in Peterborough. Hi, Sarah. How are you feeling about this one?
Oh, hello, Vanessa. I love your new program and I absolutely love you as well, Vanessa.
Oh, you're adorable. I love you as well. This is marvellous. I'm so glad you phoned. You've made my day. Tell me about caring for parents, though, Sarah.
Yes, Vanessa. I had a good job and I had to take a career break to care for my dear father. Because for me, he did a lot for me in my life. And during that time, a lot of people said to me, oh, why do you want to care for your father? Because he helped you so much. I said, no, as a Christian, it is my duty to care for my father. because for me, I could not bear to see him going into old people's home. And there were times I went there, the place was absolutely awful, and it really crushed me to see him there. So I brought him to live with me. And then when he's been gone now for 15 years, and whilst he was with me, he said, oh, thank you for everything you do for me. But in the latter part of his life, social services stepped in and they said, oh, no, you have to go into a home. And to this day, Vanessa, I feel so guilty that if he had stayed with me, he would have lived longer. He died 15 years ago, age 93, and I still feel guilty that he
don't feel guilty. It's quite clear you're a delightful person and a lovely daughter, and you did your very best, and it wasn't your fault. I would like to absolve you of the guilt. If I can do that from a pink sofa on the television, take it from me.
And
you did your
was
very best, and he was 93.
Yeah,
You obviously did a
amazing.
belting job. Yeah. Please forgive yourself. Please do, and please live happily ever after. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much to Nadia for coming in. Very, very nice to meet you and very helpful to hear from you. And thank you so much for all your calls on this one.